The engagement party was everything my sister Victoria wanted. String lights wrapped around the pergola in my parents' backyard, a catered dinner for 45 relatives, and a chocolate fountain that probably cost more than my first car. I'd arrived late, stuck in traffic after a client meeting ran long, and slipped into the back of the crowd just as Dad clinked his champagne glass. Everyone, can I have your attention? His voice carried that specific boom he reserved for family gatherings, the one that meant he was about to say something he thought was profound. I grabbed a glass of water from the drinks table and leaned against the fence, trying to be invisible. Victoria stood under the pergola with her fiancé Derek, both of them glowing with that newly engaged radiance. Derek seemed nice enough, finance guy, good job, better hair. We'd met twice. As you all know, my baby girl Victoria is getting married. Dad raised his glass and the crowd cheered. Victoria beamed, her engagement ring catching the string lights. 3 carats, princess cut. I'd heard about it in detail over our last strained phone call. Now Derek here is a successful man. He comes from a good family. They're going to have a beautiful life together. Dad's face was already flushed. He'd started drinking before guests arrived. I could tell by the way he swayed slightly. But starting a marriage, building a future, that takes capital. That takes family support. I felt a prickle of unease crawl up my spine. My daughter Natalie has been very fortunate. His eyes found me in the back. 45 faces turned to look. She started that consulting business, and from what I hear it's doing well. Very well. My consulting business. The one I'd built from my living room 5 years ago, working 16-hour days, living on protein bars and black coffee. The one I'd grown into a firm with 12 employees and annual revenue pushing $2 million. The business I'd started after Dad told me I was wasting my MBA by not taking a corporate job. So tonight we have a special announcement. Dad put his arm around Victoria. Mom appeared on her other side, wearing her pearls and her tightest smile. Natalie has agreed to sign over her inheritance from Grandma Rose to Victoria and Derek, to help them start their life together on the right foot. The applause started immediately. Victoria's hands flew to her mouth in surprise. Except it wasn't surprise, not really. I could see it in the way she didn't look shocked, just pleased. She'd known this was coming. I hadn't agreed to anything. Natalie, sweetheart, come up here. Mom beckoned me forward with that smile that wasn't a smile. Don't be shy. I didn't move. My water glass was suddenly very interesting. Dad's voice hardened. Natalie, come up here. The crowd went quiet, sensing tension. I looked up, met my father's eyes across the lawn, and said clearly, no. You could have heard a pin drop. Excuse me. Dad's face went from flush to crimson. I said no. I never agreed to sign over my inheritance. My voice was steady, but my heart was hammering against my ribs. I don't know where you got that idea, but it's not happening. Victoria's smile vanished. Nat, what are you talking about? Mom said you wanted to do this for me. Mom was mistaken. Natalie Grace Sullivan. Dad's voice dropped to that dangerous low register. This is your sister's engagement party. Do not embarrass this family. I stayed where I was. I'm not trying to embarrass anyone. I'm just clarifying that I never agreed to this. We talked about this. Mom's voice went shrill. 2 weeks ago, I told you Victoria needed help. You told me Victoria was getting married. You told me Derek was worried about student loans. You asked if I could help. Kept my voice level. I said I'd think about it. That's not an agreement to hand over a 6-figure inheritance. Grandma Rose had left me $175,000 when she died 3 years ago. I'd put most of it into my business, using it to hire staff, upgrade equipment, lease office space. That money had been the difference between staying small and scaling up. You put it in that business anyway. Victoria's voice cracked. You don't even need it anymore. You're making plenty of money. That's not the point. Dad moved toward me, his face twisted with anger. The point is family. The point is helping your sister when she needs you. Or are you too selfish to remember what that means? The crowd shifted uncomfortably. I saw Aunt Linda whisper something to Uncle Mark. Cousin Jessica had her phone out, probably texting the extended family who couldn't make it. I remember what family means, I said quietly. I remember asking you for a business loan when I was starting out. $5,000 with a repayment plan and interest. You said no because you didn't believe in my idea. That was different. I remember calling you when I landed my first major client, a $50,000 contract, and you asked if I was sure it wasn't a scam. My hands were shaking now, so I set down the water glass. I remember telling you I was expanding and you said I was getting ahead of myself. This isn't about you. Mom snapped. This is about Victoria. Everything is always about Victoria. The words came out before I could stop them. Victoria's face crumpled. How can you say that? How can you be so cruel? I'm not being cruel. I'm being honest. Dad was close enough now that I could smell the whiskey on his breath. You will sign those papers. Tonight. We have them right here. He gestured to a folder on the gift table. Stop being dramatic and do what's right. No. He grabbed my arm. Hard. His fingers dug into the soft flesh above my elbow, and I felt a spike of real fear. Let go of me, I said. Not until you sign. His voice was low, meant only for me, but in the silence of the backyard several people heard it. I saw Aunt Linda's eyes widen. I yanked my arm away and walked toward the gift table. Dad smiled, thinking he'd won. Mom relaxed her shoulders. Victoria started crying happy tears again. I picked up my purse from where I'd set it on a chair. Good girl, Dad said. Let's just get this done and we can all enjoy the party. I opened my purse and pulled out a legal folder. Not the one Dad had put on the table, my own folder, the one I'd brought just in case. Because Mom's phone call 2 weeks ago had felt off, and I'd learned to trust my instincts. I opened it on the gift table, right next to the stack of engagement cards and the folder Dad had prepared. What is that? Mom's voice went sharp. I pulled out the first document. This is Grandma Rose's will. The actual will, certified copy from the probate attorney. I held it up so people could see the official seal. It specifically states that my inheritance is mine alone, not to be transferred or claimed by other family members. Grandma Rose put that clause in specifically. She talked to me about it before she died. Dad's face went gray. She told me she was worried about exactly this scenario. My voice was louder now, carrying across the silent backyard. She said Mom had always favored Victoria, and she didn't want my inheritance used to subsidize my sister's life. That's not true. Mom gasped. It's in her own handwriting in the letter she left me. Which is also in this folder. I pulled out the second document, Grandma's flowery script visible on the page. Should I read it aloud? Natalie, Dad reached for the folder but I pulled it back. Don't touch this. Any of it. I looked at him, really looked at him. You brought me here under false pretenses. You announced something I never agreed to. You tried to use social pressure to force my hand. And when that didn't work, you physically grabbed me. Aunt Linda was definitely recording now. So was Cousin Mark. Good. I pulled out the third document. This is a legal opinion from my attorney, prepared yesterday after Mom's very aggressive phone call demanding I do the right thing. I scanned the page. It states that any attempt to coerce me into signing over my inheritance could constitute undue influence and financial exploitation, both of which have legal consequences. Mom sat down heavily in the nearest chair. Victoria was crying for real now, mascara running down her cheeks. You brought legal documents to my engagement party? You planned an ambush at your engagement party. I looked at her, this sister I'd grown up with, whose homework I'd helped with, whose college application essays I'd edited. When exactly were you going to tell me this was happening? Or were you just going to hand me papers and expect me to sign? We needed to know you'd actually do it, she whispered. Derek's family is helping us with the down payment on a house, and I told them my family was contributing too. I told them my sister was giving me money I never offered to give. But you have it. You don't need it anymore. Your business is successful. My business is successful because I invested that inheritance into it. Because I took Grandma's gift and built something with it. I looked around at the crowd. I'm not sorry for that. And I'm not signing it over. Dad finally found his voice. That money should have been split between both of you anyway. Your grandmother was playing favorites. Grandma Rose left you and Mom a substantial inheritance too. You chose to use it to renovate this house and buy a vacation condo in Florida. I gestured around the backyard. Don't talk to me about fair distribution. How dare you? No, Dad. How dare you? My voice cracked just slightly. How dare you announce something I never agreed to? How dare you grab me when I said no? How dare you try to bully me into giving away something that's legally mine? Silence. Complete, total silence except for Victoria's crying. I picked up my purse in the legal folder. I'm leaving now. Victoria, congratulations on your engagement. I hope you and Derek are very happy together. I'll send a gift. A reasonable gift from a registry like a normal person. I started toward the gate, then stopped and turned back. And just so we're all clear, the inheritance is mine. The business is mine. Grandma Rose made sure of it legally, and I'm keeping it that way. If anyone tries to contest the will or pursue this further, my attorney is prepared to file harassment claims. I looked at my parents. I love you both. But I will not be manipulated and I will not be bullied. Not anymore. I walked out through the side gate. Behind me, the party erupted in whispers and shocked conversations. I heard Mom crying. I heard Victoria saying something angry that I couldn't make out. I heard Dad's voice raised and furious. I kept walking. My phone started ringing before I even got to my car. Mom's name flashed on the screen. Then Dad's. Then Victoria's. I declined all of them and drove home in silence. The next morning I had 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Most from family members who'd been at the party. Some supportive, good for you standing up for yourself. Some accusatory, how could you ruin your sister's night? Some confused, what actually happened? I ignored all of them and went to work. My business partner Rachel was already in the office when I arrived. She took one look at my face and made coffee. Engagement party? She asked. Engagement ambush. I collapsed into my desk chair and told her everything. Rachel listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You know they're going to try again, right?" "I know. Your dad isn't the type to let this go. Neither is your mom." "I know," I repeated. "So what's the plan?" I thought about Grandma Rose, who'd built her own business in the 1960s when women weren't supposed to. Who'd fought her whole life to be taken seriously. Who'd looked at her family dynamics with clear eyes and made sure her will protected me. The plan is to keep building. Keep growing. Keep being successful. I looked at Rachel. And keep saying no when people try to take what's mine. She smiled. I can work with that. 3 weeks later Victoria called. Not to yell, talk. Really talk. "Derek and I had a long conversation," she said. "About expectations and money and family. About how Mom and Dad set this whole thing up without really asking either of us what we wanted." "Okay," I said cautiously. "I'm sorry. For assuming you'd just give me the money. For not asking. For letting them turn my engagement party into that." The apology sat between us, fragile and new. "Thank you," I said finally. "Are we okay?" Her voice was small. "Can we be okay?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "Yeah," I said. "We can be okay. But things have to be different." "I know." We talked for an hour. About boundaries and expectations and family dynamics. About Mom's favoritism and Dad's control and how we'd both been shaped by things we never questioned. It wasn't perfect. But it was a start. Mom and Dad took longer to come around. 6 months of minimal contact. Tense holiday dinners. Conversations that stayed surface level and safe. But eventually, grudgingly, they accepted it. The inheritance stayed mine. The business stayed mine. And I stayed firm. Grandma Rose would have been proud.